Dāsī ki Jai. Jai Śrīla Bhakti Rakṣak Śrīdhar Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāja ki Jai. Śrīyukta Vishakha Devī Dāsī. Gathered here on this Dandavat. Good to see you, Prabhu. We're gathered here on this very auspicious, important day. And actually we're very fortunate just that we could hear the name of His Divine Grace. By the grace of our Guru Dev, our Śrīla Govinda Maharaj, we could hear something, some small. We could comprehend in some very small and limited way, what are the glories of Śrīla Bhakti Rakṣak Śrīdhar Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāja. And actually we know we have no capacity to comprehend, right? And we are trying to appreciate through the lens of those who had capacity to appreciate. Right? We can also consider, right, who are we to, as Gurudev said once, we cannot give a certificate to Guru Maharaj, right? We're not at any place really to express how, we're like kindergarten students, who are we to speak about such great souls, right? But we can try to appreciate from the angle of vision of those who have the capacity to appreciate, right? And those who are in a position, right, to express appropriate appreciation. And our Gurudev himself, in his humility, right, he used to say, of course it's a little painful to hear, but he would often say, right, I'm just like an insect, right? I living very close to Guru Maharaj, and he also said, but Guru Maharaj is so great that even an insect, if they stay close to him, then they will get some quality, right? And something will rub off on them. Right? But Gurudev expressed it very humbly, that living so close to a great personality, it is easy to just see the day-to-day, right, and to lose sight of who they actually are. And so Gurudev would mention how, he's busy serving Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, attending to the needs of the mat, but then occasionally there would be the godbrothers of Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, right, who would come and visit. And then seeing how much honor they gave to Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, then he said, then I could understand, right? I'm just Guru Maharaj's boy, I'm serving him in the mat, what do I know? With all these big, Gaudiya charjas, Because and we were discussing a little this morning about, right, how Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj had this simplicity about him. He didn't have any airs about him, and he liked to stay in a very simple way, But then he had some godbrothers, right, who were these big, powerful acharyas, who had so many disciples and many missions throughout India, wealthy missions, powerful missions, and like persons like Madhav Maharaj. He was a very powerful preacher, an influential preacher at many temples throughout India. Then also Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj, also very, very senior member of the Gaudiya mission and very powerful preacher. And then what to speak of Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, right? Who established this huge international mission all over the world, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So Vaishnavas of this caliber would be coming and visiting Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj in his, small little poor mat, that's just struggling to get by, right? In the early days, they didn't have, proper bathroom even, right? And Gurudev mentioned there was one godbrother, Satish. They called him Satish. He was Sat Prasangananda. He took Babaji later, but he used to visit a lot. I think stayed there for some time too. But Gurudev said he always used to joke about that. Like, we don't even have money for a bath or a toilet. We don't even have. That's how poor we are, right? Gurudev said that they couldn't even afford to buy sugar, and they would use like old homeopathic sugar globules. They used to and that was like a special item, They would have with mori, right? That would be like breakfast. Maybe some days a little mustard oil, if they're lucky, a little of these old, because the homeopathic shops would donate them, like the old globules. They can't use them anymore. Like, quite extreme, right? Gurudev mentioned how there was one, they wouldn't buy hardly any vegetables. They would grow, and then they'd buy a few special things. Gurudev mentioned, like, potatoes. You heard that, right? Yeah, that was like a special item they would purchase for Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja, some potatoes. But otherwise they would grow what they needed in the mud. And he mentioned there was one tree. It had, I think it was some type of fig, and they would make a sabji out of it. But it was always covered in these fire ants, is what we call them. Those big red ants that they have in India. And if they sting you, your whole limb will swell up for a few days, right? But Gurudev said the brahmacharis used to take turns to climb the tree to get those fruits. So they lived in this, very simple, austere way. And of course there was that terrible incident in the early days when one of Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja's godbrothers wanted to take control, and Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja had to actually bribe them to leave, right? And he didn't have the money for that. So some of his godbrothers lent money, others collected for him, right? And so they could pay off these persons to leave them alone, right? So they lived like this, just a handful. And we hear also Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja was so strict that not many could tolerate to stay. He was very strict. The style of kirtan, we would all be in trouble, we would all be out. We hear if someone was playing the cartels a little too loudly, then he would want to know, who is that? Who's that? If you missed Mangal Arti, if you missed Mangal Arti one day, you'd miss breakfast. You couldn't take breakfast. If you missed for 2 days, then you'd be questioned. If you missed 3 days in a row, you were out. That was how strict. That was Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja. I would be out. I would be out. Very strict. He wouldn't let Gurudev do exercise. Right? Gurudev joined as a 17-year-old, energetic boy, and he liked to go running. Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja said, no. And you can do some gardening for the deities, and then you're naturally exercising. But separately, you can't do anything. Right? And Gurudev also told at this time someone gave him this. Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja was actually like the Goswamis, And I think of Śrīla Govinda Mahārāja and Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja too. They show different moods, right? And Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja, he particularly had this very austere nature, like one of the 6 Goswamis. And there was this one occasion we heard someone gave our Gurudev some fancy watch, and Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja saw that and he just looked at it. Didn't say anything, just looked at it. And it's exactly like the incident when Sanatana Goswami, right? His brother-in-law gave him this fancy chadar, this shawl, and Mahaprabhu just looked at it. And Sanatana Goswami completely understood, right? And so he went and he exchanged it with that poor old man for some old, ripped shawl. And Gurudev also, when Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja looked at him, just gave him a look. Gurudev understood, and he said he took it off and he threw it down. So this was how they lived. Like, not many could tolerate that. Not many could tolerate that type of standard.
How many were there, more or less, at that time?
It would have changed. Maybe like half a dozen, something like that, something like that. but he mentioned, that he wanted to stay, like after he lived an extensive, period of service in his Guru Maharaj's mission, right? Traveled all over India preaching. And then after his Guru Maharaj left the world and the Gaudiya Math started to break down, then he felt he just wanted to stay very quietly, right? And cultivate his inner world, his inner connection, study the scriptures and discuss that in a very small group. And we heard Gurudev describe how there was this one period, and at this time he was kind of hiding in a way, and because as we mentioned this morning, some of his godbrothers wanted to make him the head of a new organization, right after the breakdown of the Gaudiya Math, and so he didn't want that position, so he was kind of like in semi-hiding in Navadvip for a period, and he lived in this little, and that place is still there, and I never saw it. We have to go sometime. It's just down the road from where our mat is. It was some like very small little hut, and no electricity, of course, no running water, nothing like that. And he grew some vegetables in the garden. He would cook once a day, and he had his Govardhan Shila that he brought, right, from Vrindavan. So he would make an offering once a day, and in the daytime, while there was light, he would study the scriptures, and then in the evening, night, when there was no light, then he would chant. He would chant his japa. And that was swimming. Then he'd go swimming once a day in the Ganga, and that was his life. That was his style. And then later, some of his godbrothers, they finally found him. They discovered him, and they requested him, oh please, we want to make this new organization, you will be the head. And Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, I don't want that position, but I will encourage all of you, you take up that position. And so Gurudev, he made this nice observation that Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, he had this very special position of a king maker, right? To be a king is one thing, but to be a king maker, that is even more, right? He had that type of position amongst the society of his godbrothers. And so, for example, Jajavar Maharaj, he empowered him, gave his blessings for him to start his mission, right? Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj also, he gave him sannyas and pushed him. Many of it, and I think most don't know this, but that whole arrangement in Mayapur, if you go to Mayapur now and you see there's that whole stretch, and it's quite glorious, right? So many of the Gaudiya Maths and the ISKCON, Chandradoy Mandir, that was Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj's vision, actually. Because previously Mayapur, it was kind of like a jungly area, and it was kind of dangerous. It was a dangerous place. There were many, thieves and bandits, and it was very, foresty, many trees. It was like bit like a jungle there. And so it was actually Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj's vision that this would be because it's the birthplace, right? The Yoga Pit is there, the birthplace of Mahaprabhu is there. And so Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj had this vision that all of the principal disciples of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would have a place there, have some representation there. And so he in many cases, he encouraged them, requested them, you purchase this piece of land. And in some cases, he himself, like Bhakti, I think it was Goswami Maharaj, Bhakti Shranga Goswami, he had some point of difference with one godbrother, and he was saying, no, I'm not going to have a place there. And Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj bought the land for him, and then gave it to him and said, you have to have a place here, this is for you. Right, and then Goswami Maharaj accepted and he paid him back. Right, and also in the case of the ISKCON temple too, it was Swami Maharaj. He with the inspiration from Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, he tried to purchase land there, but we hear how there was this opposition. Right, there was some envy, right, because of his success around the world, and so there was some opposition to his purchasing this land. And so then it was actually Srila Govinda Maharaj, right? Srila Śrīdhar Maharaj sent Srila Govinda Maharaj, and he purchased the land, right? And then he was able to deal with all the local people, and then gave that to Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada. So that was actually Srila Śrīdhar Maharaj's vision, was behind all of what you see there today. And so he had this special position as a kingmaker, right? And so Gurudev, he would mention, right, how, they would be living this very simple, austere life in the mat and humble life, and then sometimes these big godbrothers would come, and they'd come with their disciples in this grand way, and they would give so much honor to Srila Śrīdhar Maharaj. And then Gurudev said, I could understand through them, who he is. And he mentioned one nice story he told was about Madhav Maharaj. And Madhav Maharaj, he was particularly, you could say, like a particularly grand preacher, very powerful, and he was very tall. Like he was from an aristocratic family. He had like a very imposing, dignified figure, and he was a very great preacher and many, many disciples. And he would come and when he would visit, then in the afternoon, after lunch prasad, he liked to take rest on some like torn, thin mattress on the floor next to Srila Śrīdhar Maharaj's bed. And Srila Śrīdhar Maharaj had told him, you take my bed, I'll rest somewhere else, outside, but you take. Srila Śrīdhar Maharaj gave him his bed, but Madhav Maharaj would insist. He wanted to sleep in this like very old, worn, thin mattress on the ground. And Gurudev said he tried to tell him on one occasion, oh Maharaj, please, don't do this, take this nice bed. And he would say, you cannot imagine, the peace that I get. You can't imagine the peace that I feel when I lie here at the feet of Śrīdhar Maharaj. So he had this very very special position. And even we hear famously, right, that even those who were anti to Srila Śrīdhar Maharaj, they could not but appreciate him, right? And there was that occasion, because there was eventually that division, right, between the, Kunja Babu's side, who was the big general manager of the Gaudiya Math, and the Ananta Vasudev side. Ananta Vasudev, who was like the philosopher man, right? And so there was this big division, and then it was, I think it was this, and because Srila Śrīdhar Maharaj had been very close with Ananta Vasudev, who we talked about this morning, then naturally persons associated, Srila Śrīdhar Maharaj, he had no party spirit, right, of course, but because he was friends with Ananta Vasudev, then naturally people saw him as being on that side, right? And so those who were on the other side, Kunja Babu's side, they saw him like as the opposition. But we hear of that occasion. Even he was, I think he was like the secretary of Kunja Babu's group. But he would come to visit Srila Śrīdhar Maharaj when he was in Calcutta. And someone asked him, like, why are you coming? Like, aren't you part of the other group? And he said, what was that expression he made? He said, because of his deep intelligence, his disinterested nature, and what did you say?
Common sense.
Common sense. His common sense, his deep intelligence, and his disinterested nature. I think that was it, right? Yeah, that was his comment, right? So even those on the other camp, they could not but appreciate him, and then a few of them, they were particularly close, right? Like Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj. Goswami Maharaj, he came from a very high lineage. They were Nityananda Vamsa, right? Vamsha. They were like the bloodline of Nityananda Prabhu, and very high level Brahmins, and it was Goswami Maharaj who had been sent to London, right, for that second trip to London for preaching. And Goswami Maharaj, he was also the only disciple that was empowered to act as Ritvik on behalf of Saraswati Thakur. So he was actually senior to Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj in the Math, right? But he always deferred to Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj. He took sannyas ultimately from Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj. But they had this very beautiful exchange, and Gurudev mentioned, you've all heard this, you all heard these stories, but it's nice to remember again, right?
Hear it again and again.
They would have this annual meeting, the Vishva Vaishnava Raja Sabha, right? And Chaitanya Saraswati Math. After Gaur Purnima, then all the leading Vaishnavas from the different missions, they would gather together and they'd have this meeting. And it was held in our mat, but Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj would give the presidential chair to Goswami Maharaj, right? And so they had this like affectionate exchange, and then there was that one occasion Goswami Maharaj made that wonderful comment, right? That he said that he used this expression to glorify Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj. He used this expression, Simhavalokan, which means the glance of a lion, right? Because when a lion is moving throughout the plain, striding forward in this very powerful way, right? Every now and again it will give a glance over its shoulder, like to check, is everything going okay? I'm still on track, right? And so pause, glance back, and then move forward. And so Goswami Maharaj, he said in the same way, we are all these powerful preachers and continuing the line of Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. He said, but every now and again we are stopping and looking at Śrīdhar Maharaj and to see, is he happy with us? Is he pleased with us? And then we are continuing. And there was another occasion in Vrindavan. It was Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj's appearance day, and Goswami Maharaj personally led an arati with a deep, or what do you call it, with 108 ghee lamps, 108. Know that normally we just bring out like on big festival days like Janmashtami or Gaur Purnima, right? This big lamp, and personally offer this worship to Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj. It is extraordinary, right? That they're the God brothers. It's difficult for God brothers to have this type of respect, right? Even respect of a lower nature, because you see your God brother, God sisters as your equals, right? So for them to have such a high degree of reverence is astonishing. That really gives us some indication, right? Who he was, who he is. And there was that other occasion in Hapanya when Gurudev he spearheaded this attempt to identify the exact birthplace of Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, and then they established. Originally, Gurudev was just thinking to mark it as a a respectful place, right? A place to give honor. And he was going to plant Tulasi there, but gradually it evolved into a full-scale temple, of deities as you see today. But in the beginning, they had to first identify the exact spot of Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj's birth, which only Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj could do because he had been the eldest in his family. And it was difficult. Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj obviously, didn't want any special honor given to his birthplace. But finally, Gurudev convinced him. But it was originally I think it was Jajra Maharaj in particular. It was the god brothers of Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj who told Gurudev, why aren't you doing anything there? They told him, you should do something there to honor your guru. And so then finally, after some time, Gurudev was able to convince Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj to come, and then a number of his god brothers also came, and they had this very special gathering that lasted for a few days. And Gurudev said that, they were meeting every day, having some discussion, some kirtan, and then at a certain point, there was this appreciation of Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj as being the representation of Radharani, right? Very extraordinary vision. And in particular, I think it was Jajvara Maharaj, and he made this comparison of Hapanya to Varshana, right, the birthplace of Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj. And they sang some songs in glorification of Radharani, right? And so it is quite extraordinary, that they had that level of appreciation. And of course, there was that moment that very key moment when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was leaving this world, and that was when everyone understood clearly, what Prabhupada, Saraswati Thakur was indicating to them, right? When he's 24 hours before he left the world, and he called Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj from his bed, as he said, right? And there were a number of things which made the whole incident even more emphatic, or defining, you can say, because Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj had actually just finished his night duty, because they would take shifts. This was like the last days of Saraswati Thakur before he left the world, and so they're attending to him 24 hours a day, and there was a group who would take shifts to always be with him, and Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj took the most difficult time. It was like from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. or something like that in the middle of the night, and so he just finished his shift, and he'd gone to his room, and then Śrīla Saraswati Thakur deliberately called for him shortly afterwards, and then requested him to sing this song, right? Shri Rupa Manjari Pada, which is the song of our highest ideal, right? The Rupa Nugas, the followers of Shri Rupa, and requested Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj to sing that song. We hear he was making a few requests. He was asking different disciples to sing different songs. It was this type of atmosphere, and then he requested Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj to sing Shri Rupa Manjari Pada. And Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, as Gurudev said, he said he wasn't known for being a good singer. And then he said, as we mentioned this morning, he said he was a good dancer, but he wasn't known as a good singer. And so he was, and of course also his nature was shy. Right? Gurudev used to say he was a back-pushing man. A back-pushing man. He always liked to stay in the back. And so Saraswati Thakur requested him, and he hesitated. Right? He hesitated. And so there's like this moment, this like awkward moment, right, of silence, and then Kunja Babu, right, as we mentioned, he had this role like as the overall manager of the Gaudiya mission. He was the right hand, right, of Saraswati Thakur, and so he, thinks he's being helpful, right, and he requested someone else who was known for singing, requested them to sing instead, and he started. But then Saraswati Thakur stopped him, like very deliberately, and said, "No, I want to hear Śrīdhar Maharaj. I want to hear Śrīdhar Maharaj to sing that song." And everyone was actually quite surprised, but they could understand. This was a very clear indication, right? That we are the line of Shri Rupa, and this is the song, right? Aspiring for the service of it is the. It's like the anthem, this song. It is like the anthem of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, sacred anthem. And so it was very, it became very clear to everyone present what was Saraswati Thakur's indication there. He didn't leave any will, right, so to speak. He didn't leave any clear directives for how they should continue the mission, right? But they could understand that he was indicating that the current would continue through Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj. And that was and there one of the witnesses there used that expression, right, that there was this mystic power transmission, right, that took place at that time, and that there was this feeling that Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj had been given entrance, right, to this higher plane of seva. And I also heard, even Gurudev told too, how that devotee who had been requested to sing, I won't say the name now, he had such a pure heart, right? And then Saraswati Thakur cut him off, but he had such a pure heart. He had no envy about that, and later he celebrated that, and he glorified Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj. Kunja Babu asked me to sing, but Prabhupada didn't want to hear me. He wanted to hear you sing. And so they all had this recognition, right, of this very special position of Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj. And Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, he mentioned this one composition that he'd written, right, the Bhakti Vinod Viraha Dashakam, right, that he'd written it's 10 verses in separation from Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Right? And he mentioned that, particularly this one verse, right, that he said, I believe it is on the basis of that my Guru Maharaj requested me at that time, right, to sing that song. And that composition Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj wrote when he first joined, or not exactly when he first joined, but early on. It was actually like the first thing he wrote after joining the Gaudiya Math, which is kind of curious because you would think the first thing he would be inspired to write would be about his own guru, right, Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj had a strategy, right? That he thought, because it was actually originally, he heard Saraswati Thakur mention in one talk that if you really want to please someone, you have to touch their heart, right? And so Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj thought about that very deeply. Because he thought, how can I want to touch my guru's heart, right? So how can I do that? And so he realized that the intelligent approach would be not to directly glorify his guru, Saraswati Thakur, but to glorify his guru's guru, right? Because he thought, actually, my Guru Maharaj, he's not interested in hearing his own glories, right? He wants to hear the glories of his... He wants to hear the glories of his guru. Right? Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj mentioned about Saraswati Thakur. He said that in our guru we could see how much earnestness it is possible to have for one's guru, right? In the level of devotion that Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had for Śrīla Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Right? He said, we saw how much earnestness it is possible to have for one's guru. His everything, his within, his without, was Bhakti Vinod. Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj made a comment like that, and so he thought like this, that if I really want to capture his attention, then my strategy should be to glorify his guru, not to directly glorify him. Right? And so then the first thing that he came to write was the Bhakti Vinod Viraha Dashakam. And it is a very extraordinary composition, glorifying Bhakti Vinod in every level, right? It is like within the scope of the whole of Vaishnavism, right? He's placing what is the contribution of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, within the scope of within the scope of Vaishnavism as a whole, right? Within the last few, 1,000 years, and then also within the context of the time, the context and history when he appeared, right? The state of the society, he's also appreciating him on that level, right? And then also placing him next to other great Vaishnava acharyas, right? Ramanuja and so on, and showing his special gift, right? And then ultimately in this verse, it's the 8th verse, maybe 9th verse. Then he's placing him within all of the significant charges in the line of Mahaprabhu, right? Since Mahaprabhu's appearance until the present, what is the unique place of Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Thakur, right? And that ultimately, and then showing that ultimately his greatest gift is Radha Dasyam, right? And that verse is so extraordinary. It is so perfect, right? Because it's glorifying Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but it's also showing, the internal purpose for Mahaprabhu's appearance, right? And then showing the special role in all of these different acharjas in the presentation of this gift, the distribution of this gift, the protection of this gift, right? This Shri Gauranumatam Sarupa Viditam, right? What Mahaprabhu came to give, what was known to Swarup Damodar, what was tasted by Raghunath Das Goswami, what was adored by Sanatana Goswami, what was Shri Rupa Gajainadritam, Rupa Dhyai Pariveshitam, was distributed by Rupa Goswami, Jiva Dhyera Birakshitam, which was protected by Jiva Goswami and his group, right? What is worshipped from afar, worship Sri Brahmadi, the Sri Shuka, Shiva, Brahmadi, Samanitam, what is worshipped from afar by Brahma, Lord Brahma, Shuka, Shiva, right? They cannot directly touch this, right? And Shri Radha Pada Sevanamritam Ahota Datam Isho Bhavan. You, Bhakti Vinod, you can give that wonderful gift, right? You can give that gift, the service of the lotus feet, the nectarian service of the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani. That is your glory. And then in the very last verse, then Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, he then made his prayer, right? But it is very curious because he's addressing Bhaktivinoda Thakur in this. The composition is actually direct. It's a direct address to Bhaktivinoda. He's glorifying him, like you addressing him like that. And then in the very last verse, then he says, "I have one request for you." Right? And we've heard descriptions from Gurudev, from persons who were present, right? How Saraswati Thakur, because Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj came and handed this to Saraswati Thakur, and Saraswati Thakur had someone read it to him, and so they could observe the different reactions that Saraswati Thakur had, like as they're reading through different verses, and so we heard from Gurudev about what he'd heard, I guess, from Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, right, of the different comments that Saraswati Thakur made when he's hearing different verses of this composition, and Śrīla Saraswati Thakur is so pleased, listening to this. But then when they came to this last verse, and Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj said, "I have one request to make of you," then Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, he was a little withdrawn and like looking a little disappointed, like oh, he's going to ruin it now. He's going to spoil it now, because normally you don't ask for anything, right? And so Saraswati Thakur said, "Why? What's he doing now?" But then what he said was, he's addressing Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but in front of Saraswati Thakur, he says, "Please give me the service of your most beloved," right? So he's asking Bhaktivinoda Thakur, "Give me the service of my guru, Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, like that." And then he's presenting this to Saraswati Thakur. I mean, it's like this, kind of powerful web, right, that you're weaving on someone's heart, which is completely capture them, melt their heart, right, bind their heart. And so, of course, Saraswati Thakur was very pleased by that, and particularly that one verse, which is describing this gift of Radha Dasyam. And then he made this this one particular comment at the end, he said, "Now I am satisfied that when I leave this world, at least one person remains behind who understands what I came for, who understands what my purpose is." So it was a huge statement. It was a huge statement. And so Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, he made that comment, that I think it is on the basis of that composition, that my Guru Maharaj, he called me in that way and had me sing that song in those last moments, right? And he also made one funny comment because some of the witnesses of that, they said, "Oh, Prabhupada gave you entrance," right? He gave you entrance, and Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, he said, "They say that, but I think he put me as a gatekeeper." I'm there as a gatekeeper. And then he also said, "And I'm not letting anyone and everyone in," right? Something like that. And of course his name, right, is also showing that spirit, right? Bhakti Rakṣak Śrīdhar, guardian of devotion. Bhakti Rakṣak is the meaning. Guardian of devotion. Guardian of devotion. He was, we can sit here all day. So he had so many extraordinary qualities, but he had this nature actually as a protector, and we can also compare, as Gurudev has, to Jiva Goswami, right? Jiva Goswami, who has that spirit. It's a special mood and quality that can come, that some Vaishnavas have, and Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj had that special role, right, to protect and to defend, right, the conception, the purity of the conception, the dignity of the conception, and Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj very much had that, right, in terms of having the knowledge, the purity of heart, the authenticity, but also that he had a capacity to speak to people, right? And he had a capacity to convince people. He had this type of power, and we heard of many examples of that, from Gurudev, and even there was one occasion we heard from Srila Govinda Maharaj when Srila Saraswati Thakur could not convince someone, right? There was one man who came in some argumentative mood, and he was debating with Srila Saraswati Thakur at some point, and Srila Saraswati Thakur could not convince him, and so he called for Srila Śrīdhar Maharaj, and Srila Śrīdhar Maharaj, within like 15 or 20 minutes, he could convince him, and Gurudev said, because he used to, of course, it was his own quality, but also he used to meet so many different people, right, throughout India, traveling and preaching, and so he became acquainted with, many different mentalities, right, and he knew how to speak to persons of different natures, and then of course, so brilliant, right, in his presentation of things, and we heard of different occasions too when his godbrothers, like in later years, his godbrothers would call upon him, like if they were in trouble, if they were being attacked by pundits, right, in some way. Because, in India has this ancient, noble tradition of scholarship and debate, right? And so there were a few occasions when his godbrothers were trying to establish a temple, but the local pundits were against them, and wouldn't give them respect, and they could not come to some, harmony in their discussion, and so they were struggling to establish themselves, and so they called for Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj. There was one occasion in Varanasi, I think that was in the time of Saraswati Thakur, and I think it was Jajavar Maharaj, and so Jajavar Maharaj called for Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, and Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj spoke with these local pundits, and they were very satisfied, with him, and they let him be. And Jajra Maharaj used one expression, I forget the Bengali, but Gurudev mentioned it, how like he took their conception up from the very root. He uprooted it from the very foundation, right? And then there was another occasion in, I forget the name. It was again Jajra Maharaj. It was where he later established his own mat on the Bengal side. I can't remember the name right now. But there, again, Jajra Maharaj is trying to establish his mat and again, having trouble with these local scholars, and he called for Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj. And that's actually where the Shalagram Shila came from. It was from that occasion, because at the end of that, and this was a point too that Gurudev made, like persons would be happily defeated by Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, because he was so brilliant and also gentlemanly, and they were happy to honor, his greatness and happy to be defeated. Right? That's quite a feat, isn't it? It's one thing to defeat someone, but to defeat them in such a powerful and yet gentle way also. He had that nature. Yeah, actually, another thing Gurudev mentioned was how Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj always maintains this gentlemanly way of debate and discussion. And because Saraswati Thakur, he had a little bit of a strong style, right? A little bit of a heavy style. And he was a revolutionary, right? And Gurudev said, some of the disciples of Saraswati Thakur, they would kind of imitate him a little bit. They would try to imitate that. And Gurudev said, but Guru Maharaj, no, he always kept this very gentlemanly way, of debate and presentation. And so at that time, with Jajra Maharaj, I wish I could remember the name of the place. I can't remember. They were so pleased, this group of pundits, the head of the pundits wanted to give a gift, and so they gave the Shalagram Shila. And that's how that whole story started, right? And that Shalagram Shila, because Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj didn't want to accept, and so that Shila made the rounds, right, through different mats, and then finally ended up, Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj couldn't avoid it, ended up in Navadvip by his own will, right? That's a whole other story. So there were many occasions like that, and actually that that debate was really something with those pundits who gave the Shila, because they were we don't know, right? Like Ratnavali, she has some idea of this high culture, right? We don't really know. Like India has such a high culture. Right, but like these scholars, they were so brilliant. He said the head scholar who was like heading up the debate, he presented his arguments for 2 hours. For 2 hours. He was presenting his arguments for 2 hours. And Gurudev's there, like, as this young man, watching everything. And he said that Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, he's listening, and he would started doing this, like taking mental notes, and he's like noting down like all of these key points, like that. And then after the 2 hours presenting their arguments, then Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj responds, right? Like this is the level. This is the level. It's a very high culture. And actually, the area where our mat was established, Koladweep or Kolardanga, it's one of the reasons, there are many reasons, right, why Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj chose that place. That's a whole other discussion, right? It's some Aparad Banjampat, the place where all offenses are excused. It's Gupta Govardhan, hidden Govardhan, right? But there was another point too, that area, it's right next to this other area called Tegadipada. And some of you may remember there was a vegetable market there. The vegetable market, it's like a 5-10 minute rickshaw ride away. kind of like going behind the mat. That whole area was where these prominent pundits lived. And they had caused a lot of trouble in the time of Śrīla Saraswati Thakur, to the point that Śrīla Saraswati Thakur couldn't establish a mission there. Right? They created a lot of opposition. Because it had been Śrīla Saraswati Thakur's vision that that he would establish a Gaudiya Math in each of the 9 islands, right? Navadvip is composed of 9 islands, right? That's the spiritual vision. And so he wanted to establish a Math on each of these islands. And he was able to do so on all of them, except for that island, right? Which island is it? Koladvip, right? Koladvip. And later, Keshav Maharaj, right? We didn't mention Keshav Maharaj, right? He was also, dear godbrother, very powerful disciple of Saraswati Thakur. He was very strong, right? And of course he's the one who Śrīla Swami Maharaj took sannyas from, right, under the suggestion of Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj. But he was able to open this Devananda Gaudiya Math, right? But Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj also felt that he wanted to establish something there, where his Guru Maharaj hadn't been able to, like to fulfill his vision, help to fulfill that vision. And so our Math is right next to this area of these scholars. And what happened is that the head of these scholars, he came to visit Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj at one time, and meeting Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, speaking with him, he had some change of heart, right? And he could understand that he had been mistaken, right, in the opposition that they had made previously. I don't know if it was his group in particular, but some, like Saraswati Thakur, faced very serious opposition. There were attempts made on his life, and we hear of that one occasion they were doing the Navadvitam Parikrama, people were throwing bricks, and because what he was doing was so different and so revolutionary in many ways. Giving the Brahmin thread to non-Brahmins, introducing the sannyas cloth, right, into Mahaprabhu's lineage, and so on. So there was so much opposition, and so then this one Pandit in particular, he later, meeting Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, he could understand the error of his ways, and then he also made this statement. I realize now that I made an offense to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, to the movement of Sriman Mahaprabhu, and he said, and I feel that if I can take prasad in the mat of Śrīdhar Maharaj, then my offense will be nullified. He made that comment, and he did that. So this was the dignity, right, of Śrīla Bhakti Rakṣak Śrīdhar Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāja. And we've hardly said anything actually, right? What to speak of all the unique contributions that he made, right? What we were discussing a little the other day. You were there, and Nitai Chand, right? He gave fresh wealth, right, in this lineage which had not been given before, right? He gave this deep insight into the Gayatri mantra, right, into the Chatur Shloki of Bhagavad Gita, right, which had not been given before, and even Gurudev, Śrīla Govinda Maharaj, even some of the godbrothers of Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, they were a little concerned on some points that, like, you're giving so much, giving something so high, right? This is too much, right? But that's another subject. But really, it is we cannot really comprehend, who is Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, and but if we think about it, you don't come this type of wealth, in how once in a day of Brahma, right? If you think about it. Maybe not even that. It is very, very rare. Right? right? It is very rare. And we have little capacity to appreciate, our hope is to serve that, right? To serve that well, to serve Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj and his beloved servitor Śrīla Govinda Maharaj and his mission, right? We're trying to serve that in our humble way. And we are happy that in our small way we can try to help to continue, right, with the legacy of Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj and try to fulfill his desires, right? And Gurudev mentioned in a very poignant way, right, that now that Guru Maharaj is gone, are all of these things not important to him anymore, right? His deities, his temples, his devotees, right? These things are still very important for him, right? And so now it is our chance, actually, to try to continue with that seva, right? Gurudev wrote this very extraordinary line. It is in it's the Pranati Dashakam, I think. It's in one of Gurudev's compositions about Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, but it's in the beginning here somewhere. But Gurudev uses is it Pranati Dashakam? Yeah, I think it is Pranati Dashakam. It's a really extraordinary glorification of Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj written in Sanskrit by Śrīla Govinda Maharaj. But there is this one, it's here. It's on page 25 if anyone wants to look at it. But Gurudev, in verses 8 to 10, Gurudev gives this really profound vision, right, describing how, and he uses this phrase, Seva Samsiddhi Vigraha, which it means something like the deity of service and perfection. And so he's describing how Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj came and he established this glorious mission, right, of Shri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat, and established the worship of the deities and the care of the devotees and so on. And then he entered into samadhi, right, and he's taken this deity form. And in his deity form, he's actually continuing with the seva of the mat, right? And so in that sense, all the servitors of the mat, they are his instruments, right? That he's actually the one carrying out all the seva. And that those who are fortunate, who are blessed, right, to have that privilege, they are continuing that seva, but actually it is by his power and his will, right? And so, we can pray, right, that we may be used, right, to fulfill his will, his living desire in this world, right? The living desire of, we pray we may be instruments, right, of the will of our divine guardian, Śrīla Govinda Maharaj, Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj. So their mission may continue for many, many years. Well, I'll stop there. Jai Śrīla Bhakti Rakṣak Śrīdhar Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāja ki Jai, Tadiya Tirobhav Mahamahotsava Titi ki Jai, Śrīla Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāja ki Jai. Does anyone else want to?
Śrīyukta Vishakha Devī Dāsī. You made us very happy and filled our hearts with nectar, and we were so happy to hear the pastimes of our beloved grandfather, Guru Maharaj. This morning, early morning, and now again, flowing so beautiful from your heart. We're very grateful.
The blessings of the Vaishnavas, blessings of Gurudev, just trying to present something. We'll be happy to hear from others. Do you want to say anything, Didi?
I wrote something down. Today is the festival of the disappearance of Lord Viṣṇupāda Bhakti Rakṣak Śrīdhar Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāja. We call him affectionately Śrīla Guru Maharaj because Śrīla Govinda Maharaj called him that way.
He is our and my beloved grandfather Guru, Śrīla Guru Maharaj. In the family where I was born, I never had grandparents from neither my father's nor my mother's side. But then unexpected grace came in my life that I received from the Lord, a spiritual grandfather, Guru, and that was his illustrious name is Śrīla Śrīdhar Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāja. We hear from the devotees that the affection of the grandfather can even sometimes surpass the affection of the father. No doubt, my Gurudev is all in all, but many times when challenges and tests in daily spiritual life presented itself, the soothing relief always came from the harmonizing words of the lotus mouth of Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj via his videos or his holy books. Go deep in yourself. The environment is perfect. Try to adjust yourself and harmonize with the environment. Then, with our Śrīla Gurudev's eternal advice of humility, tolerance, and give respect to others, receive the perfect mixture, tools to live by eternally. Then I have a second part of what I wrote down this morning. If you please allow me. With deep, humble affection, I offer my Dandavat pranams to the glorious holy lotus feet of Om Viṣṇupāda Bhakti Rakṣak Śrīdhar Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāja. When reading or listening to Śrīla Guru Maharaj speaking Krishna Katha or explaining the verses of the Shastras, he showed newer and newer light upon the most internal philosophical conclusions of Sri Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta, and I feel extremely grateful that he is my grandfather Gurudev. The transcendental topics and pastimes of the Lord that coming from his lotus mouth are about divine beauty and profundity. We can only be astounded that so much wealth came to us in this lifetime. I am unworthy to glorify our Param Guru Maharaj grace and glorious pastimes properly. They are unlimited and deep heart-melting. Śrīla Guru Maharaj gave us gems of the highest spiritual substance, full of intoxicating sweetness and beauty. By his chanting, Dayal Nitai, Dayal Nitai, he showed us our true fortune that is in the divine feet of Dayal Nitai. By the mercy of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, we must be successful. But above all, Śrīla Guru Maharaj gave us our beloved Śrīla Gurudev, his divine grace Om Viṣṇupāda Śrīla Bhakti Sundar Govinda Maharaj. I took a quote from Jagamohini Devi Dāsī from some years ago. We are reminded on this day that just as the glorious full moon of Śrīla Guru Maharaj's divine pastimes were setting, the brilliant sun that is his most beloved disciple, Śrīla Bhakti Sundar Govinda Maharaj, was rising and spreading his soothing rays to the hearts of the afflicted devotees, and we are all here because of that. Śrīla Guru Maharaj is always present in our lives with our Śrīla Gurudev, as are their representatives, the devotees, the holy books, and we feel so fortunate to have video and audio recordings from their darshans. We are very thankful for this treasure chest in our life. It reveals to us the journey on the path of the highest absolute good, the absolute beauty, bliss and ecstasy. Always praying to Param Gurudev to please forgive my offenses and keep me in the shelter of his holy lotus feet. Jai Om Viṣṇupāda Bhakti Rakṣak Śrīdhar Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāja, Tiro Bhav Mahamotsav ki Jai. Śrīla Bhakti Rakṣak Śrīdhar Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāja ki Jai. Om Viṣṇupāda Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāja ki Jai. Gaur Premanande.
Where is that from? You wrote that? Who wrote that? Where is that from?
I was quoting something from Jagamohini's Shining when he was setting. The sun was setting, the rising of the shining sun was. The rest I wrote down this morning.
Sachi wrote it. Oh, you wrote it. Oh, great. Right, yeah. That's. You're trying to prevaricate to avoid.
That shows how good it is. Yeah.
I don't know what's been said already, so I'll say something at the expense of repetition, at the risk of repetition. Just noting, today is Amavasya. You may have noted. Have you mentioned?
No, I didn't talk actually very much about the disappearance pastime. I didn't talk about it actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just general glories of Param Gurudev.
Yeah, I think so. Mostly from the angle of his godbrothers and all that. Yeah.
Okay. So Param Gurudev, Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja, he passes away on the Amavasya, which is today. And the Amavasya is when the moon in its monthly cycle reaches its lowest point of light. So at the very peak of the Amavasya, you can see the moon in the sky on a cloudless night, just as a sliver as a crescent moon. And this is the moon that we see decorating the head of Lord Shiva. And it's mentioned in Gurudev's Pranam mantra. Who's Devari Devam Ahibhushanam Indukasham. Is it Indukasham, isn't it? Having the moon on his head. So that is the final of what are 30 titis, or lunar days, in a cycle. And on this day, we see that certain personalities in our Gaudiya Vaishnav collection of luminaries have history, have passed away. Gadadhar Pandit, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and our Param Gurudev all passed away on the Amavasya. And Param Gurudev was born on what is called the Nomi Titi, Navami or Nomi. And this is the same day, the same titi, not just the same titi, but the same mas and titi. In other words, the same date, the same lunar date, the same month, and the same titi as the son of Nityananda Prabhu. His name was Virachandra or Virabhadra. So he was born on this very auspicious lunar date. And as mentioned, he exhibited the mercy, really, of Nityananda Prabhu, even though he himself was of a disposition that was not geared towards active solicitation or canvassing. Not in his later years. We hear this mentioned a lot, that Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja was a self-admitted ease lover, and that he wanted to live a quiet, secluded life of a mendicant Brahmin. And these things are correct, but these things really apply to the later stages of his life. When he entered the Gaudiya Math in 1924, he joined up, I believe, properly. Or maybe he first started visiting in 24 and then fully joined in 26, 2 years later. But initially, noting his intellectual excellence, he was put in the publishing department, where they'd have the intellectuals, the brains behind the Brihat Mridanga of Saraswati Thakur. So you had, as mentioned this morning, Ananta Vasudev, and you had the other fellow, I forget, Vidya.
Ram Gopal Vidyabhushan?
No, someone else. I forget. Anyway, he did a lot of the writing of the articles. But it was all done generally under the auspices, or ultimately of Saraswati Thakur, but then Ananta Vasudeva was in charge of that area. And of course, seeing Param Gurudev's capabilities, they immediately wanted to recruit him into the preaching engine room. But that was, of course, the engine room, like the back. Param Gurudev wanted to be at the battlefront. He wanted to be meeting people face to face, talking to them about the Krishna conception, about Mahaprabhu's teachings. And so rather than being part of the support network, which is essential in any fighting force, 90% of the resources are not on the front lines. 90% of the logistics, they're supplying the support to those fighting on the front lines. So 10% of the human resource involved in any campaign are on the front lines. And Param Gurudev, he wanted to be on the front lines, actively fighting. So they put him in the publishing department. But he said, I'm not one for sitting in an office all day, even though Shastra was his thing. The title Shastra Nipuna, or Shastrically expert, Shastrically brilliant, was given to him by Saraswati Thakur later. Still, he wanted to be actively serving on the front line. So he changed his service from one in the publishing department to being on the front lines and preaching. So in those days, he was certainly not an ease lover. Certainly not just living the life of a quiet mendicant Brahmin seeking higher and higher spiritual realizations. He was actively serving and sacrificing on the front line and doing so very successfully. He preached in Kurukshetra, in Delhi, in Madras, in Mumbai, and then later personally accompanying, and of course famously personally appointed by Saraswati Thakur to trace the location of the Ramananda Samvad in Godavari and Rajamahundry in Andhra Pradesh. And then given the name Ramananda, we've probably covered this, right? No? You didn't cover that? What? And given the name Ramananda Das.
As they said, we could sit here all day.
Yeah, there's an ocean. Yes. So, actively preaching and giving his time and sacrificing on the front line. And this leads us to the point that although, and our Gurudev, Śrīla Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāja makes this point that us Westerners, although I never got to meet Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja, I'm in contact with many that did. And it's that generation that you could say are the first Western generation of the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mutt. So speaking about those Westerners that had contact with Param Gurudev and those that had second-hand contact via them, he said, it is good, but you've only seen a portion of Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja's life. You've seen his later Leela. And there is so much else prior to that really only Gurudev was privy to. So even though we have others that are disciples of Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja, when put next to Gurudev, there is quite a disparity in terms of disciple seniority relative to, junior-senior relativity. But the point being that in his earlier days, Param Gurudev was not, as we just hear of him in Navadvip, in his room, in his later, what we could call his Antya-lila, Antya meaning final, final pastimes. We hear how he was running the Navadvip. He would run pilgrimages. He ran a pilgrimage up to Badrinath and performing Navadvip Dham Parikram. And Gurudev has told us that on the Navadvip Dham Parikram, and this again was mentioned this morning, how Gurudev noted how Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja was a great dancer. And we have no videos of that. Of course, that would be ecstatic to watch. We have no video recordings of that. But Guru Maharaj, Param Gurudev himself notes in his memoirs that there's some memoirs in Golden Reflections and I forget the name of the booklets, they don't come to me right now. Sri Guru Maharaj, his life and precepts or something. Is that what it's called? Centenary Anthology, yeah. Same information is kind of reproduced in a couple of little booklets, but he recounts how when running the Navadvip Parikram, he was going a little bit crazy and he dancing like a madman in the ecstasy of Gauranga Lila. And we have this image now of a very somber, gentle, humble, wise, brilliantly wise, but reclusive person. We don't have this image of a active, frontline preacher, of a person who is dancing like a madman in the ecstasy of Gauranga Lila while touring on Navadvip Parikram. We miss this, but we know it as heritage. We know it is there to complement and support the elderly Śrīla Bhakti Rakṣak Śrīdhar Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāja that we know, that we've been exposed to in the West. So just some words to complement, to add to the glories already expressed of Param Gurudev. That will do for now. Like you say, I could bang on for a while, but that will do. It's getting late, isn't it? So.
Oh yeah, we didn't say anything about his early life.
That's wonderful. The useful, beautiful Guru Maharaj.
That always reminds me of the second verse of Sri Guru Vastakam. Madhurya Lila Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nritya Gita Madhurya Lila Guna Rupa Namnam. No, Mahaprabhu Kirtana. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Madhurya Lila Guna Rupa. Yeah, that one. Madhurya Lila Guna Romancha Kampa. Hang on. Let me get it. No, it's different. No. Anyway, Mahaprabhu. Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't come to me right now. Sorry.
One thought I had also what you just said is just how even in his later chapter, right, considered to be reclusive and meditative, he's still helping like the whole GBC and giving like Shri Guru in his grace, and all the books are basically based on that time where Did you want to finish that thought?
Yeah, I did. It's there. I just got a little confused with the other. The second verse of Sri Guru Vastika. How the Guru Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nritya Gita Paritra Madhyan Manaso, and Madhya refers to intoxication. Like Baditra Madhyan Manaso Rasena. The mind is intoxicated in the rasa of Mahaprabhu's kirtan. That's the second verse, the Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nritya Gita, dancing and singing Nritya Gita. Varitra Madhyan Manaso Rasena. With a mind, dancing in Mahaprabhu's kirtan, singing, dancing in Mahaprabhu's kirtan, with a mind intoxicated with the rasa of Mahaprabhu. It always, whenever I remember that remembrance of Param Gurudev, it reminds me of a modern day expression of this genuine example and expression of the second verse of Vishwanath Chakravarti's famous song.
Anyone else want to share anything?
Just to say that on one of the, I went to India. I told many times. I went to India in 1982 when ISKCON broke up, and but unfortunately, and this has been, Śrīdhar Mahārāja was giving his classes and everything, and but I was only there for a few weeks, because then I broke my leg, and then that started a period of health problems with my leg, and eventually led to me leaving the movement. But I feel very fortunate, really, that I actually went to India and became, eventually became a disciple of Śrīla Śrīdhar Mahārāja. And even in my years in the wilderness, I had this picture in my house, and it's just like I was remembering the Hare Krishna Maha mantra. So I never really, although I was completely in Maya and everything, but eventually, of course, I came back. So I just thought of. I'll just read this what we say every day, Devam Divyatanam Sikandam, but we don't often say the English, so I thought I'd read the English. Okay, well actually, Devam Divyatanam Sikandam Badanam Balaka Chalanjatam Sandunanda Puram Sadeka Varanam Vaivakya Vicham Buddhim Sri Siddhanta Nidim Sibhakti Lasatam Sarasvatanam Varam Vande Tam Shupadam Mad Eka Sharanam Yoshishvaram Sridham. I fall at the feet of Śrīdhar Śrīdhar Dev, who with charming expression sings his songs of sweet nectar. Dressed with fine garments like sun newly risen, he is the true saint the devotees have chosen. His detachment and knowledge are just like an ocean, the treasure house of complete, perfect conclusion. Radiant in pastimes of loving devotion, the abode of pure ecstasy, bestower of good fortune, foremost true follower of Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta, foremost great general of the whole renounced order, my lord and my master, my only shelter, I worship his feet, Śrīdhar Dev. Goswāmī. Hare Krishna.
Well, we could go all day, but probably we should do arati, right? Jai Śrīla Bhakti Rakṣak Śrīdhar Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāja.
Somati nandana Rajavarana Gara Somati nandana Rajavarana Gara Gokula Yeah.